how is it that you develop any skill set? And 25 years ago, I realized that the paramount, essential, differentiating skill set was the ability to cause people to say yes, to cause people to say yes. But when I first understood that the causing people to say yes involved money and marketing and selling, at times, I thought that was disgusting and gross. I thought that money was evil, that rich people were bad, and I thought that people causing people to say yes did it manipulatively. I wasn't present to how powerful yes had been in my life, how powerful yes was when my family decided to have me like Batman or watch JamesBond movies with my dad. I had to say yes to do those things. I had to say yes to pay attention and to believe in the lessons, and to say yes to become a Jets fan and a Mets fan, which was painful at times, but would lead to a moment like in 1986 when they won the World Series, and it changed my belief about the impossible. When I sat there and watched the greatest World Series comeback in history, if I hadn't suffered as a Mets fan for a decade at that point, really remember games since I was 6 years old, it wouldn't have changed my belief structure about everything. How I said yes to advertisements on television, ABC, Wide World of Sports, to watch and become involved in watching as a 10-year-old the 1980 Miracle on Ice. People caused me to say yes to watch that. And it changed my belief again about what was possible and impossible. So yes wasn't just about money, but yes was also about money. And if I hadn't said yes to go to law school, if I hadn't said yes to go to my first Tony Robbins event, if I hadn't said yes to buy the book Awaken the Giant Within, to say yes to buy Robert Anthony's How to Make a Fortune from Public Speaking, to say yes to Jay Abraham's marketing advertisement about a Mr. X and some other fight in this long-form marketing copy that might have been gimmicky to some, but for me changed my life when I bought his $500 book, and I had the privilege of talking to Jay about that campaign and how he and Tony built it together with one of his clients that was stealing his work, and how they transformed it into everything. And that was they did $9 million in revenue, but I don't really care as much about $9 million in revenue as I care about what that book did to change my life and to form some foundational components to what we teach in process mastery here. And yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. And yes to me agreeing to say yes to my batting instructor and coach in college when I first said no, and he wanted to change my stance, and it led to powerful, unbelievable things, and me being one of the top 10 hitters Division I in America, and to say yes to my learning disabled neighbor. Say yes to my learning disabled neighbor when he said, I'll take you to the batting cages when I was in high school. And he did. And saying yes to my learning disabled neighbor, unbelievable human being who said he'd pitch batting practice to me when I was in college ready to quit. To say yes to my freshman high school football coach that I wouldn't be afraid and I would go at 100% in tackling drills. These were all yeses that masters created for me. Say yes to Columbia University instead of Penn State. That was life-changing. To say yes to Columbia instead of Yale and Princeton, life-changing. Yes is our marketing. It is our managing. It is our selling. It is our leading. It is our recruiting. It is our nonprofit. It is for-profit. To say yes to Kris Krohn to go to the Ukraine. I had already begun to form sustainable giving models. But then when Kris said, would you raise the money on my stage? And I raised $2.6 million. And some of you are here because of that. $2.6 million. And he gave me, I had to go from hello to yes with him. Said, dude, if you want me to do what I could do, you got to get out of my way and let me do this for 3 hours. And it's my way or I can't do it. And he said yes. I said yes to him. He said yes to me. Yes causes everything. And Outliers says 10,000 hours. And Talent Code says 10,000 hours can be dramatically reduced. And deep practice where you are is about the dramatic reduction